What if I told you that almost every argument about taxes, freedom, equality, war, and even your daily rights is secretly using one of just a handful of political ideas? You don't need a political science degree to understand them. But once you do, you will start seeing these theories everywhere in elections, in headlines, in workplace rules, and in the way governments justify what they do. So here are the 5 most important political theories everyone should understand. First, liberalism. Liberalism is the idea that individuals should have freedom, rights, and protection from arbitrary power. At its core, it asks, how do we make sure people can live their own lives without the state, the church, or other people controlling them too much? This is useful because it explains why we care about free speech, due process, private property, and civil liberties. A liberal system tries to create rules that protect the individual from abuse. For example, if the government wants to arrest someone, liberalism says there should be evidence, a fair trial, and legal limits, not just raw power. Second, conservatism. Conservatism says society works best when it respects tradition, stability, and institutions that have stood the test of time. Instead of assuming every old rule is bad, conservatives ask, what if these traditions exist because they solve real problems? That makes this theory useful in understanding why people resist rapid change. It explains arguments like, do not tear down the system too fast, or some reforms sound good but could create chaos. For example, when a country debates changing school curriculums, family laws, or national institutions, conservatives often argue that slow change is safer than radical redesign. Third, socialism. Socialism is built around the idea that the economy should be organized to reduce inequality and give ordinary people more control over resources and production. Its big question is, if a small number of people control most wealth, how free are everyone else really? This theory is useful because it helps explain labor rights, public healthcare, unions, and government intervention in markets. In terms of mechanism, socialism focuses on power in the economy, not just political power. If workers have no bargaining power, they may technically be free but practically trapped. For example, minimum wage laws, union protections, and public education are often supported by socialist or social democratic thinking because they try to make life less dependent on pure market power. Fourth, libertarianism. Libertarianism pushes freedom even further and says the state should be as small as possible. The idea is simple. Government power can be just as dangerous as private power, and too many rules can limit choice, innovation, and responsibility. This is useful for understanding arguments about taxes, regulation, censorship, drug policy, and entrepreneurship. For example, a libertarian may argue that if 2 adults want to make a voluntary exchange, the government should not interfere unless someone is being harmed. The mechanism here is incentive. Libertarians believe free markets and individual choice usually produce better outcomes because people have more reason to experiment, compete, and solve problems efficiently. Fifth, fascism. Fascism is one of the most dangerous political theories, and it is important to understand it clearly. At its core, fascism rejects individual freedom and democracy in favor of extreme nationalism, obedience, and a powerful state centered around a leader or ruling group. It is useful to recognize because fascism does not always announce itself as evil. It often comes wrapped in language about national greatness, order, unity, and enemies who supposedly threaten the nation. The mechanism behind fascism is fear and control, create an us versus them worldview, centralize authority, and demand loyalty over truth. For example, when a movement says dissent is betrayal, the press is the enemy, and one leader alone can restore greatness, that is a major red flag. These 5 theories are not just abstract labels, they are like lenses. Liberalism asks, how do we protect rights? Conservatism asks, how do we preserve stability? Socialism asks, how do we reduce economic power imbalances? Libertarianism asks, how do we maximize freedom from the state? Fascism asks, in a darker way, how do we impose unity through power and control? And once you can spot these lenses, politics becomes a lot less confusing. You stop hearing random opinions and start recognizing the deeper logic underneath them, because the real power is not just having a political belief. It is understanding the ideas that shape the world around you. The 5 most important political theories everyone should understand is just one small part of political theories for students interested in history and politics. If you are interested, our full free political theories for students interested in history and politics course is linked in the description.